The first modern and classical board games were ever designed, there's one board game component that has featured in thousands of different board games, and that is cards. In this video, we're going to be looking at how you can use cards to your advantage to help you win your next board game. Here are 6 strategies to get you going. Hi, my name's Danny. I'm an avid modern board gamer from Australia who loves sharing my passion for this hobby with you, my friends, and my family. Come and join me on this journey. So I pay the resources and play this bird card onto my playboard and pass the turn to you. So on my turn, I choose to activate the Draw Birds card action row. What? You did recommend that I should go for a big card drawing strategy this time round. When it comes to using cards to help you advance your strategy, to head you to that winning goal of dominating the game, there's one thing that is really super powerful that features in a lot of card-based games. Card draw is probably one of the most advantageous things that you can do. If you can find any way to increase your ability to draw additional cards into your hand, that means you are getting additional options that the other players don't have. If, for example, there is a limit of 4 cards in everyone's hands, but there's a power that allows you to draw 5 cards or 6 cards, that means you've got 2 extra options over the other players who only have 4. And this is predominant in really cool games like Great Western Trail. In Great Western Trail New Zealand, you're building a deck of cards that features a big, beautiful, diverse breed of different sheep, which you're then going to cash in for money. But there are cards in this game that you can add to your deck that give you chaining combos. So cards like this, every time you play this card, you actually get $2. And then when you play this card gives you the ability to draw another card to replace this card that you've used. And so if you've got 2 or 3 of these cards in a row, you can kind of play each of them to get $6 and then replace them with other sheep breeds that can go into your deck that you can cultivate and use to get more money when you reach the end of the Great Western Trail track. Or even these Kingfisher cards that really accelerate your ability to climb the Pathfinder track, giving you more bonuses, unlocking extra powers that you can use to advance your overall game strategy. The power of being able to draw more cards more frequently means that the options that you have become more plentiful, and the way that you churn through your deck or churn through your cards and your options means that you can chain things together and you can just really get a lot of value out of just being able to have those extra choices. And this brings me to a very important point. Hand limit and hand size matters so much. If you can find a way to increase your hand size or the number of cards and number of options you can hold on to, that is well worth investing early on in the game, because it means for the rest of the game, you will have 1 or 2 more options over the other players. In games like Great Western Trail, where the aim of the game is to kind of sift through your deck of cattle cards so that you've got unique cattle so that you can trade them in at Kansas City for money, having an increased hand size means that you can have that extra cattle card in your hand, giving you that extra money, that extra flexibility, that extra wiggle room to kind of push your game a little bit further than the other players. And this additional card draw and additional card advantage is basically seen in a lot of these card-driven board games. Games like Evolution, where you're building your own species, you're actually building quite a few different species, you're adding different traits on them that allow them to survive or feed better or prey on other species. And in Evolution, at the beginning of every round, every player draws 3 cards plus 1 extra card for each species that they currently have still alive. And by having a greater number of species in front of you is going to increase not only your hand limit, but the options of the different traits you can pick from that you can then add to newer species that you add in your tableau. This idea of being able to give yourself more options means that you're going to have a lot more choice over the strength of your species, the types of traits that they might have, and how you might respond to other players who are also trying to build those their own species as they try to attack you and outcompete and out-survive. Another thing that I often see a lot of games do is they provide opportunities for connecting different cards together. And what you can essentially do with cards in a lot of modern board games is create chain reactions. You're either connecting a series of connected cards together that trigger and give you bonuses, but creating a cool chain reaction effect is something that's going to give you plentiful amounts of resources that you can use to reinvest in other actions in the game itself. And so, a simplest example I've got of this comes from a Phil Walker Harding game called Planted, where you're basically trying to gather resources to feed different species of plants to gain verdancy and victory points. But there's one element in this game that I think is superbly done, and that is that you get to draft decoration cards and tool cards. And a lot of the tool cards in the game trigger when you take particular resource cards. So for example, this window planter here, every time you play a single sun resource card, you actually get a green thumb. And when you have 2 green thumbs in this game, you actually turn it into any resource of your choice. And then when you have multiple window planters, you can actually trigger this window planter effect twice on future turns when you play other single sun resource cards. By creating a cool little system of triggers and cascading effects means that you're going to get those important resources a lot more sooner, a lot more efficiently, a lot more quickly, and you can then reinvest those into other resources that you need in order to satisfy the different plant species. I just love figuring that out. And in one game of Planted, one of my friends ended up with a cool water producing strategy where basically when they played a single or double water drop card, they got like 2 other water drops, meaning that they netted 4 water drops on a single card play. An important thing that you'll discover in games that have a lot of cards in them, especially if there's like a deck building or tableau building element, and basically tableau building is kind of, instead of building like a stack of cards, like when you're building a deck, you're actually kind of splaying the cards out in a grid. Games like Wingspan and Earth are games that have that kind of tableau building effect because you're placing those cards in a particular order or to create a system of actions that you can kind of trigger multiple times throughout the game. Finding really good card synergy, card combos that really bounce off each other, work together, and kind of lead you towards a common goal. Maybe your goal might be earning the most money in Machi Koro, and you're trying to build a tableau of cards that kind of help you not only to get results on other players' turns or get money on other players' turns, or you can develop a strategy where you get to take money from other players throughout the game. So whatever your economic strategy is, that's going to really be determined by the types of cards you place out, whether the chance of those numbers is going to be quite high when you roll that number in Machi Koro, because it's kind of like a dice triggering tableau building sort of game. Or you've got games like Imperial Settlers, where you're playing different ancient civilizations and you're building a tableau of different buildings with different effects. You start expanding your civilization, your ability to produce gold, if you're playing with the Egyptians, becomes a lot more powerful. If you're playing with the barbarians, your ability to raid other villages is actually a little bit more easier. You kind of develop a strategy based on how you connect the different cards you've got. And when you start seeing those connections, it kind of fills itself in like a dot-to-dot puzzle. You're like, oh, I see the dots before, but now as I connect the dots together, each dot being a card that is, you start seeing how the cards play off each other. Then you've got games like Oceans, which is a sequel game to an earlier game that I showed you in this video called Evolution. But with Oceans, the way you place your species out, the fact that if you place your species next to other species, those other adjacent species can get bonus effects simply by being adjacent to an animal that you've placed out. There's also deep cards in here where there's lots of different variations of powers and abilities. There's cards that allow you to play extra traits on your species, strengthening their ability to maneuver and kind of protect themselves. But just seeing how even different traits work together to help you to feed more often and get more food tokens, or to protect yourself. Figuring out those synergies is part of what helps you to unlock the cool game design. And I consider myself to be a bit of a master card game strategist. Well, if you're that good, how come I can see all the cards in your hand? It's a game called Hanabi. You're supposed to face your cards away so all the other players can see them. Now, when it comes to being able to choose your cards, that is a very important decision that you really need to weigh up. If you're presented with a market of card options or 5 or 6 different cards that you need to peruse and think, oh, I need to add that to my deck to help build a cool engine or build a cool combo, that is a really crucial decision that you need to prioritize. And there are a lot of games that have deck building embedded within. And deck building is particularly cool because you can kind of customize the game's components to the way that you want your deck to flow. So if it's a game about, entering like the tomb, like in the game Clank, and trying to maneuver the movement speed of your person, then maybe you might acquire more cards that help to enhance your movement and give you bonuses when you move. There are a lot of games out there where deck building is something that gives you a lot of control about how your game plays out. You've got games like Dune Imperium, which is like a deck building worker placement game, and the fact that the cards that you use give you options for where you can place your workers on the main game board. And the cards have multiple functions to it. The fact that the cards give you the ability to buy other cards that you can acquire into your deck. So you're always faced with a really big dilemma of using that card to place your worker out, or to use your card to purchase other cards that help to build your deck and fatten your deck out so that it focuses on a particular way of winning. Everdell, another worker placement game where you've got a meadow of options where there's 8 cards that are visible all the time, and then if you purchase certain cards, and if you purchase the right combo of critter and residence or building cards, you can actually house those critters for free if you have those buildings already. The final tip that I have for advanced winning card playing moves is by basically using the cards to deny your opponents options, to deny your opponents an ability to build efficiently, and to deny your opponents particular things that they need to be more efficient than you. So a lot of drafting sort of games, for example, like Canopy, you can kind of see what your opponent is going for. You can look through the piles of cards and you can go, you know what? That player needs like a pair of animals in order to create a cool little bit of synergy. I might take that animal and put it in my tableau and get part of the points instead. Having that ability to be able to scope your opponent's tableau or see how their deck works and set up some counter maneuvers using the cards that you see and you can acquire and access means that you are kind of slowing your opponent's progress down. And while some people don't like that feeling of having their engine being hindered, it does depend on the type of game that you're playing. I mean, you've got games like Herbaceous where you have to kind of wait it out, where you have to really find that window of opportunity to be able to nab the herbs and plant and pot them to maximize the points that you get. And whilst every player is trying to do the same thing and still waiting their turn to try and get that best perfect combo of herbs, that makes for some really great strategy. And if you can kind of just infiltrate that a little bit and just nab them just before you know the next player wants to pot some of those herb combos. Same thing with Floriferous, and even this beautiful game called The Gardens. The idea that you are given a select number of options, and as those options dwindle, they influence what the other players after you are going to choose. If you know the next player needs a particular pathway or a particular scoring card, then you might take that scoring card to reduce the chances of that player winning or advancing further into the lead. Making those really tactical and strategic card decisions means that you are going to even out the playing field a lot more. And then you've got games like Meadow where you're racing to build different tableaus of icons and connect icons together around this campfire and lay cards on top. By simultaneously being able to scope out and see what sort of icons other players need, if you take some of those cards and options away from those players, it does mean that those players have to tactfully change their strategy. And then you got really cool, fun bluffing games like Spicy, where it's just all about fun and trying to use the cards in a way to outbluff your opponents into making the wrong assumptions about what you've played or making an incorrect guess. And I just love games that kind of tap into the psychology of card play. Good card draw, good card usage, and good card acquisition. And so I guess that's why games like poker are so popular and Magic the Gathering and Pokemon are such strong games, just because of the synergy, the psychology behind getting into your deck and crafting it to the best of your ability and the sort of play style that you really want to play as. So what did you think of those cool card strategies? Whilst these strategies are quite overarching and generalistic in nature, a lot of these strategies can be specific for different types of card-based games that are out there in the board gaming world. There are some that are more preferable than others, based on the type of game that you're playing. For example, if you're building a deck, or if you are creating combos, or if you're building a tableau, and other strategies lead to other scenarios that benefit you. So what are some of the cool different card strategies that you use in some of your favorite card games? Let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to start a conversation with you and hear all about your experiences. And if you really found this video super helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and head over to my Patreon page and have a little bit of direction over future videos on this channel. Otherwise, this is Danny signing out. Don't forget to check out my other videos on my main YouTube page for more board gaming wholesome content. This is Danny signing out. I'll see you again next time. Goodbye.